Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another day of the Knights Arena Valorant Challengers North America Mid-Season Face-Off. It's week 2. We're in day 3. We're all over the place, but we found ourselves to another elimination day as multiple teams will be sent packing, and we'll be diving into that in just a moment. But before we do, I want to remind you, if you're watching at home, join the fan zone. You can converse with like-minded individuals or maybe not like-minded individuals, and you also have a chance to have your questions asked in the post-match interviews that we will be running all show long. You can find out more at pks.gg/fanzone. But we talk about matchups. We've got a doozy. In fact, you know what? I'm just going to get some stretches in while we welcome our analysts to the show. We've got Dust and we've got Starry Bun, and it's going to be a 3-match day as we've got best of 3s in the upper bracket. So I'm just going to get stretched because it's a marathon day. I'm feeling good. I don't know about you, Dust. I mean, this is shaping up to be a pretty awesome, we'll just say awesome day.
Yeah, indeed. I did all my stretches off stream, by the way. So that's one of just so you know, I did take care of myself and everything's going to be
Good.
fine. But yeah, I mean, obviously we start off with the banger with the Guard versus M80, the two top ranked teams in Challengers. You know, so that's a great start. And then we got some big elimination matches because today we basically will get our final 4 teams, which are the 4 teams that will actually be earning circuit points today, or throughout the rest of the week, I guess you could say. So definitely a big day here.
Let's go ahead and take a look at the bracket, and we will see how things have shaped up across the last couple of days. Starry, I know you had a chance to watch some of the VODs and catch up on the action that potentially some of the people at home haven't seen. Looking specifically at yesterday's matchups, we had our TSM versus DSG match. We had our G2 versus FaZe. Both games 2-0. Thought that maybe we would see things go a little bit differently, but as a result, we end up with the matchups in the bottom there: Oxygen versus TSM and Moist versus G2.
Yeah, for sure. The matches were really interesting, especially the G2 and FaZe. I kind of expected more of a fight back from FaZe, but seeing that G2 were able to clean it up was really nice. And for TSM and DSG, I was hoping to see a little bit more out of DSG, but I think TSM just had a lot of good rounds in them that kind of put them on top in the end.
It is unfortunate because I think a lot of us came into the season really excited to see what that DSG roster was going to do. And then having a roster change in week 4, role swaps left and right as they saw the Riku coming in off the bench. Riku, by the way, and I think some people pointed it out, Riku working a full-time job while also being the stand-in for DSG, putting in crazy hours to try and fill the void that was left by Exalt. Hats off to doing that. As someone who's moonlit in the esports industry before, that's not exactly easy to do. But as a result, DSG just doesn't have enough to muster up the strength to beat TSM, and they will be moving on. They're facing off against Oxygen, a team who came in from the upper bracket match against the Guard, and that was a 3-map series. And then on the flip side, you've got Moist facing off against G2, who lost to M80, another 3-map series, Dust, in our semifinals. That's what produces the upper final, which we will also be focusing on today, M80 versus the Guard.
Right. Yeah, I think we were kind of talking about this, off broadcast when we were kind of planning out things. And Oxygen and Moist Moguls have definitely been 2 teams that have just been getting better and better as each week passes, it seems. Like, each team has definitely some huge star power on them. Particularly look at Oxygen, you think a guy like Pony and Verno and Scuba. But Moist also have those guys as well. But they've also just strategically evolved over time and just like kind of, honed in their tactics and have become... both those teams are kind of near the top 5 right now, actually, in Challengers. So it'll be interesting to see how they go up against kind of some of these veteran squads like TSM, who have had players that played VCT in the past. And obviously G2 is basically a combination of like Sentinels and version 1 from last year. So yeah, it's kind of like the new Guard versus the old Guard, some of these lower bracket matches coming up later today.
What I love is some of the names you even just mentioned there, they were not names at the start of the split. They were not people you really knew. They were players you'd never necessarily heard of. Verno definitely was way off the radar for most people, and he's had an incredible split thus far, and we'll be seeing them today as well. But we can take a look at the schedule so we can see which matches we're going to get and in which order. We know the matches we're going to see, but we're going to be kicking things off with a game that I think a lot of people expected to see at this point. It's just how we got here that maybe was a little bit interesting, as M80 and the Guard, I don't want to say they struggled, but it was definitely a hard-fought series in the semifinal, as both Oxygen and Moist respectively put up insane performances, played incredibly well. I think that honestly Moist probably could have won that game. They were in a really good position to close out that series. but unfortunately both teams just fell a little bit short and they dropped down into the lower bracket. So we do end up getting the M80 versus Guard upper bracket matchup as a lot of us expected. And then looking down later today, it's Oxygen versus TSM and Moist versus G2. And again, sorry, those are elimination games. One of those teams in each of those matches is going home away from the mid-season face-off. No points.
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking to see because all of those teams are such an exciting match to see, especially like Oxygen and Moist Moguls. They've definitely proven themselves a lot throughout this circuit. And to see them in the lower bracket and to see potentially that one of them can be sent home is kind of heartbreaking. But at the same time, since they are in the elimination match, we're going to definitely see them pull out all the stops. And it's kind of like a do or die type moment for them. So I'm really excited to see what they're going to bring to the table.
I've heard a couple players say it like, hey, lower bracket run. We've been here before. We've done this. Let's just put our heads down and get to work. We heard it from some of the players yesterday in their post-match interviews. And I'd say a lot of the teams that are currently sitting at that position, they've been in this scenario before. They know what they have to do. But we're not starting with those lower bracket matchups. We're not going to see the elimination matches to kick things off. We are starting with M80 versus the Guard. A group stage rematch, sure. But it's at the upper bracket finals, which is where I think a lot of people expected it to come. And I also think a lot of people expect this to be potentially the grand final. I think coming into the season, these were your number 1 and number 2 team. Now, depends on who you asked which one would be in which position. And I think largely, Dust, that storyline ended up being true. I think the Guard and M80, you have to look at them as the number 1 and 2 teams just based on stats alone.
Oh, yeah, based on stats alone, which we'll get to later, but also just thinking about the firepower that each team packs and just thinking about the style that each team brings to the table. You know, M80 has a stacked roster from top to bottom when it comes to individually skilled players, and they play a very high-paced play style that can be very oppressive and very hard to deal with. But the Guard, on the flip side, the team also has a lot of talent on their team, you know, is a little bit better at playing kind of the slower, more methodical style of VALORANT, and they found a way to contain M80's aggression when no other team could, right? I mean, M80 were undefeated up until they came up against the Guard, and the Guard was able to really shut them down in their initial matchup and actually 2-0 the series in pretty dominant fashion, really thanks to just big defenses. Like, they found a way to slow down the Koala Noob antics and just the fast-paced strats that M80 like to play. But what I think is also interesting about this matchup is that both of these teams have a lot of mystery to them still. And what I mean by that is that first off, for both teams, the sample sizes are pretty small because for M80, they didn't play anything outside of the split. They didn't play qualifiers. They didn't play all-season events. Also, M80 has only played 4 maps out of the entire pool so far. And largely, the Guard only played like 3 or 4 maps in their own right up until very recently. They finally got to play 1 game on Fracture and 1 game on Split. So there's still a lot to be said about these 2 teams' map pools that we just don't know about yet.
Now, Dust, I know these are some stats that you really wanted to highlight because this kind of illustrates what we were talking about, the strength that M80 has coming in today. Just statistically, you can see it illustrated right here.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of crazy that just from top to bottom, this team is top 3 or better in essentially every real category you can think of when it comes to round win percentage, when it comes to ecos, half buys, pistols, when they're at a disadvantage, when they're at an advantage. Like, they have been snatching up rounds no matter what scenario they're in. And obviously, up until they lost to the Guard, they were just dominant. So, yeah, definitely why they're kind of ranked in the top 2. You can see it right here. The numbers are right in front of you.
Let's pivot the conversation over to the Guard, though. Dust, you had even touched upon it there for a second. Starry, we were talking about it in the green room before the stream even went live. When these 2 teams faced off in week 5, one of the things that the Guard did really well was neutralizing Koala, and a large part of that was not being like way far out on your own, not allowing him isolated 1v1s, definitely using utility more. It seems like the Guard plays very cohesively as a team.
Yeah, watching the matches from week 5 of Split 1, sorry. Watching those matches, it was really incredible because they really know that Koala Noob, if given the space and the timing, he can disrupt everything. And the fact that they knew that and they played a lot more back, a lot more together, and they never even sent out their util out early either is what we discussed. And they did a really good job of just like timing their util correctly, just focusing on their retakes because they know working as a team, they'll be able to kind of dominate in that fashion. And Koala Noob, unfortunately, was never able to get those early picks that he's so good for.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're perfectly right there, Star. I think the utility usage is a big thing for the guard. That's just because they're so team play oriented, and the core four of this team has been together since early last year. The only change that they made coming into this year for challengers was obviously Saya player going back to Korea to play in that region, and then they brought Tex on board to be kind of their new duelist. But everything else has really remained the same, and so that chemistry that they've built over time has been able to remain to allow them to handle those mid-round chaotic moments and be able to do on the fly like utility plays to get themselves into good positions. And as you can see, they do it a lot because they are also basically in the top 3 of every category you could think of, just like M80 when it comes to how they're converting their rounds and how they're able to do it no matter what type of round it is, whether it's an eco, a half buy, a pistol, whether they're at an advantage or a disadvantage. They still seem to be able to be in the top 2 ranking, and that's why they largely find themselves right there next to M80 as the best teams of challengers.
One of the things I like too, and we saw it just briefly for a moment in the tape there for the guard, is a little bit of innovation. I don't want to say it's pure innovation because we may have seen other teams do it, but they're willing to roll the dice more and maybe change up roles, bring in agents we don't see every team in this region doing. Like we saw Valen playing as Harbor. Not every team has done that. And yeah, sure, it's on Lotus where we might be more likely to see teams roll things around a little bit and come up with a creative solution to how they want to approach the map. But I just like the fact that we're seeing that, because one of the things we weren't really pleased with looking at last year at VCT coming into stage 2, like the guard tried to adapt to the current meta with the chamber play, but it didn't work, and they largely kind of fell flat after that Masters disappointment in Iceland. So they ended up actually midway through kind of taking things back to where it was before, and they started to find success. So the fact that the guard can adapt a little bit more, that's huge. I think that's incredibly beneficial to the roster. But when we look at each of these teams, there are 2 players that stand at the forefront. One you'll pretty much expect, that's going to be Trent for the guard, but the other one has kind of surprised us a little bit. Starry, looking at Xander, his performance is incredible, stats alone. His performance, given that he plays a controller role, is unreal.
Yeah, Xander's a player that I've been really watching very closely for a while now because I am the controller main for my team. And then the thing that's really amazing about Xander that doesn't get noticed as much is that as a controller player, I feel like he has a really good idea of how to play very passively, but also very aggressively, which is really strange for a controller player, because for controller players, it's really important for you to stay alive, especially for your smokes, for executes, for like retakes. But Xander is so good about getting like those really aggressive first picks and then falling back and being able to hold down his sight as well. So it's really nice to see him dominating in the stats, especially in ACS, where you would usually see typically a duelist run those stats. So it's like really cool to see him kind of dominate in like ACS, ADR, even KD.
Yeah, it has been awesome to see, especially because when you think about the split overall, it was really Koaladub and EU and Nismo that were the ones kind of like stealing the show and really being the ones that leapt off the stat sheet. You know, Koaladub was #1 in ACS and KD and kills per round and first kills per round throughout like the first 5 matches of the first split, and EU was right behind him, same with Nismo and a lot of those same categories. But now Xander, as maybe teams have started to figure out Koala a little bit more, and maybe as Xander's been required to stand out more to kind of fill some of those mid to late round moments, he has stepped up to the plate and he has just shown you how stacked this M80 team is, because while those 3 I mentioned might have been leaders throughout the split, he proves how deep the roster is when he's able to put up those kind of numbers throughout this midseason face-off.
Highest rating currently in mid-season face-off, highest ACS, highest KD, highest cast percentage as well. All
and it's not even close.
Controller. Like it's really not. He's 6% above in cast. I'm going to look directly at the stats. 1.6 KD compared to 1.37 for Verno. His rating is a 1.46. You got Verno at a 1.19. Again, no discredit to anyone else playing. It's just right now Xander is playing out of his mind. The question is, can he sustain it? And we'll hope that he can do that today. But we did have a chance to sit down and talk with the players, and given that this is a rematch, I'm sure they have some spicy opinions. Let's take a listen.
I mean, I'm always going to say that I feel like we're the best team, regardless of what our results are like. I always have confidence in my team and confidence in myself as an individual. So,
I mean, yeah, obviously you have to come in with the mindset that you're the best. So yeah, I think it's definitely the firepower we have on this team. You know, it's we have the type of team that if a couple of us not having a good game, then you have a couple other guys that are just going to carry it. So, you know, definitely firepower, I think, in my opinion. We have a lot of ideas flowing, and I think coaching staff is a big part of it also.
I don't want to sound cocky or anything like that, but as a player, you know, with my team, I feel like our team is probably top 1, top 2. If we're on our A day, you know, everyone's on their A game, everyone's feeling it. Valorant is, you know, calling perfectly. Everyone's adding in their strats that we need to add. I feel like we are definitely the best team in the league.
I think us and maybe 2 other teams in the league are pretty... We function well as a team. We're all on the same page, and we're pretty well coordinated. I think a lot of the other teams are kind of missing that attribute. You can see that we're pretty well drilled in the way that we play. I'd say that's it.
Well, obviously, I have respect for the guard. You know, they had a lot of good runs in the past. I actually think that we could have played better when we played them, but they came in, they wanted to win, they deserved it, you know. But we'll come back strong, and we're gonna give a good BO3, and hopefully close it out in a 2-0, because I know we have the potential to beat anyone in North America, basically, and that's included franchising teams. So I'm not scared of the guard for sure.
Yeah, I think they're a good team. I think they're pretty well drilled. I think they had a good game plan going against us in group stage. I feel like it's a pretty good matchup, but like I said, it depends on how big of a focus it is for them versus us. But I feel like we learned a decent amount of things from the guard match that we didn't learn throughout the entire rest of the tournament that we played so far. So we'll see if we can learn some other stuff when we play them again, so we can continue to improve as a team, but we'll have to see. I think they're all good as players. I think they have like 5 X factors. That's why I said it kind of depends on who shows up on the day. I feel like everybody on our team can take over the game. I feel like everybody on their team can take over the game. So yeah, we'll see.
They just play with teamwork and they play together and they win the games. But I think the way that we play kind of counters that heavily, and you know, our teamwork and our utility usage is going to push them out of their it's going to make them very uncomfortable and make them make bad decisions. Because I think, you know, every match in the series in the MFO is going to be good. I think, you know, I think it'll go 3 maps, and if not, we'll 2-0 them. All of them have an X factor, like in them, like all 5 players. They can all, you know, take over a game or win them the game in a sense. I don't think anyone on their team is standing out from one another. I think I saw a Twitter post of like 4 people on the top 10 rating or something like that. So I don't think any of them is just a solid, like way better than the other teammate player. So I feel like we just got to play our game, and we're not too worried about their individual performance. I mean, we beat them last time, and they went on Twitter and said they got first, and that's all they wanted. So let's see if they can beat us again.
Best of luck, I guess.
Hopefully, we see you guys in grand finals again. You know, once we knock you guys out in the lower bracket, hope to see you guys in grand finals again.
I really love that Nismo clarified, like, oh, when we see you in the grand finals, it's because you're coming from the lower bracket. Because for a second it was there, oh, we're going to see you in the grand finals. And he realized, like, wait, that means we could potentially be. He's like doing the math in his head. But then he ends up realizing, like, oh, I got to clarify here, and I got to say that it's going to be us. I also love the fact that, you know, I think it was EU who said it to us, not scared at all of the guard. They learned a lot from that previous match, because you had even mentioned it watching the video. That was the first team to really push them to the brink.
Exactly. Like, before their matchup against the guard, it felt like M80 could do no wrong. They could get away with anything. And it was really based on, again, a mixture of having just generally a very aggressive play style that was based on like these fat pace set pieces with well-coordinated utility, but also the X factor element to that was at times they could just let Koala play through intuition, and he would just kind of go off and do his own thing, and they would support him, but he would be the one kind of picking his battles and choosing his timings, and he would be able to get away with them against a lot of the teams and challengers, whereas the guard, they knew what they were up against, and they were able to really kind of slow him down.
Looking at the maps in the series, this is something that is a little bit interesting. So we knew coming into this that both of these teams have been permabanning Icebox and Lotus. They just don't want to play those maps. We even talked about M80's relatively shallow map pool. Not to say they can't play the other maps. They just haven't had to yet. But Starry, we have not seen M80 or the guard play Fracture at all during this split of challengers.
Yeah, we haven't. Fracture is a wild card pick, and I actually really love it. Because last time when they went up against the guard, obviously Koala Noob was getting shut down. He wasn't being able to get those first picks. But I feel like on Fracture, where there's just so many openings, B main, A main, drop, arcade, there's just so many places that Koala Noob can just try and like pick and pry and get an opening and fall back. I feel like there's a lot more to play around with in terms of the map for Koala Noob. So I'm excited to see how they'll unleash him for Fracture.
Yeah, that is very true. Like you said, M80 has not played Fracture yet. The Guards only played it once this year, and it wasn't even in Challenger. It was in the Ludwig Terrakin Invitational. They got a win over T1. But I will say, if you kind of look at the core four last year, they had a lot of struggles on that map towards the end of last year. So it'll be interesting to see how they evolve. But kind of focusing back in on Pearl, this is one of the maps we did see them play against each other in the initial matchup. And it was the win for Guard, of course, 13-9. And it was largely based on a stout defense that really just contained Koala and really shut down a lot of M80's initial game plans. But outside of that, the Guard loss, I mean, M80's beaten everyone else they've played other than OR Esports, their first series of the split. And the Guard has continued to show success after the M80 match, also beating Oxygen during the mid-season face-off already and just generally having a pretty good record on the map. So yeah, I think this is kind of an even battleground. It'll be interesting to see what adjustments each team makes based on their previous meeting.
You know, I'm looking at the first two maps and I'm thinking Pearl could be potentially problematic for M80. Yeah, you mentioned it. They did lose to the Guard before. They lost to OR Esports. Maybe add a little asterisk, first map jitters, whatever. It was the first series of group play, so surely there were some things to figure out. Their series against Moist, they did not look very great, at least in the first half. They lose the half 8-4. They do end up winning it. They win 9 rounds, giving up just 2, but still it was very hard fought against Moist, and I thought that Moist probably could have closed that game out, had a few situations just gone a little bit differently for them. So again, I don't really love the Pearl pick, and we'll see if that ends up being the case. It is where things are going to be starting off. If we do go to Haven, that also is interesting because it doesn't feel like it's a map we've seen a lot for the Guard. We've seen plenty of it from M80 though.
Yeah. The one thing I'm going to say is this, like, you know, as we're starting to get ready for the matchup to start, I don't think we're going to get a repeat of last time. I can't see this matchup being one-sided again in the Guard's favor. I'm not necessarily predicting an M80 victory, but I think that we're going to see a much tighter series. I think M80 has now kind of learned their limits on what they can get away with some of their individual aggression. And now that they've learned that lesson, they can kind of focus more on that team cohesion, but still keep up the pace. And so I think we should have a pretty close match. I don't know what Starry thinks, though.
Definitely. I feel like M80 this time around will have their homework done. They'll go back in the VOD and be like, hey, what did they do on their defense side that we can really exploit? And I feel like they'll come better prepared.
Well, we have a bit of an interesting and peculiar and a somewhat awkward scenario here, Dust. There's a love triangle situation going on. As it appears, you're on the desk. Your former co-caster and your current co-caster are actually our casters for the series, and I'm not sure how I feel about this one, but we'll toss it over as we've got Shift and Tanner standing by. Boys,
take care of each other, boys. Take care of each other. It's all I ask.
Bach, the desk, thank you so much. Yes, it is I, Tanner Metro, and Shift today. It's not what it looks like, man. It's not what it looks like. It is just business. Speaking of how things seem, we heard it in that video from Nismo himself. M80, the team that could beat partner teams if they were put to the test. But Shift, the team across from them today, made me second guess that. The Guard were the team that finally stopped this reign of terror for M80.
It's a really interesting dichotomy when like you look at how the matchup went, because I think there is like an inherent level of M80 steamrolled through just about everybody in groups, and they were getting away with this unrelenting, just indomitable speed. And all of a sudden, the Guard just said, no, you can't do that anymore. And there was a moment, I think, of panic with M80 in the mix, especially on that first map in Ascent, where, you know, we kind of saw things really get out of hand with 8 straight rounds in a row for the Guard when they had swapped sides. But what I'm really curious about in this particular matchup is the head-to-head face-up on a rematched map where M80 was getting absolutely shut down. Xander, in particular, was a non-factor pretty much in the entirety of this series, which is very weird to say. And I was curious to see if there were going to be any adjustments in the agent selection, because M80 has actually found a lot of value with Viper before on this map, and the time that they tried Sova, it was against the Guard, and they did not really get a 1-for-1 comparing Trent to EU, because Trent absolutely took over that series. So a lot of things to consider with this agent comp. Nothing changing from the last time these two teams had played, though.
Yep, nothing changing at all. Yeah, you mentioned it. John Cudi, in most recent times against Moist Moguls, was playing that Viper, but they go back to what feels comfortable. Looked a little shaky on Pearl before, but now we get to see it once more. And this right here, there were a lot of people who thought that M80 were maybe taking it easy week 5, did not want to give up too much. And now we get to see if that stands true, or if M80, or if the Guard, excuse me, can do it again. They'll start on their attack. We posture 2 out towards mid, 3 out towards long. Early knife, early recon bolt. But it's just noise.
And I think the thing that we also keep in mind for this series is that you saw the numbers on the team head-to-head stats. They're number 1, 2, or 3 in every single category.
Yes.
So the margins are really thin. And one of the things we saw from the Guard was their ability to really expose M80, not just necessarily on pistols, but in particular, getting an eco advantage early. So this pistol is super important towards the Guard as they're looking to try to go right through this alarm bot. John is in the way of this. And actually, that's enough pressure to kind of force the Guard to return back over towards A as the spike is leaning towards long.
Yeah, and John, anything but left alone. Xander, however, stuck inside the nebulous smoke. I said stuck, but look at it shift. Xander showing up today. 2 early kills for M80 as the Guard now got to back away from it all and try and figure it out in a 3v5.
Yeah, and just going back to the Xander point, he was minus 15 on the entire series. He didn't even break past 20 kill threshold when these two teams played before, but right in towards the first rounds, their match versus Moist Moguls, Xander was plus 12 on this map, top fragged for his team. So his ability to bounce back was a key reason for their win there. And it looks like things are starting off pretty swimmingly for him here as well. Rotation over towards B. The only defender is going to be EU, but he's just playing for information, and likely that intel will lead towards the defense. Probably, I'd imagine, looking for a retake off of the plant.
Yeah, I mean, EU, he's just been kicking back on the beach chair, got his coconut drink with the umbrella in it. He's been on an island this entire time, and I mean, he's been successful in staying alive. Now will finally make himself known after a couple of shock darts. He'll land some bullets onto net. That cuts things down to 2. It's Trent, it's Jonah, and they're across the map from one another, but they're starting to do some damage. Now it's all up to Trent, and unfortunately, this is not the round we see him pop off. 3 kills for Xander, and the round belongs to M80.
And one of the things about the Guard in that last matchup versus M80 was their ability to find quick success against a team that typically plays with a ton of speed and a lot of aggression. So that was another kind of factor that kept M80 on their heels. This was already, though, in an early pistol. Again, early for us to really kind of give them claims, but M80's ability to kind of stay a little bit more patient, not get baited by the Guard throwing 3 different looks at them throughout this pistol is already a sign of a little bit more security in this composition and maybe the mentality they want to bring. So into the second round, couple of sheriffs, a frenzy for the Guard, and you're actually getting 2 bulldogs, a phantom, and a guardian. So a pretty heavy rifle buy here for M80 on the anti-eco.
Yeah, very, very heavily invested. It does mean light shields, though. So these sheriffs basically turn into guardians should they find a headshot. Recon Bolt won't reveal EU, but they should know that he's still up close and personal. And yeah, there he is. He's gone.
Dude, Tex is one of the dirtiest players with either a sheriff or a marshal in hand in these anti-ecos, man. I'll tell you, it just feels like he just connects on shots that he probably shouldn't. So it's a huge first blood, and now Koala Noob with the Bulldog may have to ask for a little bit of help because John is set up for mid. He cannot rotate any of his utility over, and M80 is largely relying on this long flank to kind of entrap the Guard here at long.
Yeah, and you see it recalling that smoke, trying to get some information as to where the defenders are playing. Meanwhile, knowing that the hit is out towards B, the rest of M80 rotate towards this B site, and Tex continues to do it. Takes the first one down with the Sheriff, picks up that Guardian. Now starts to go to work once more. Nismo going to find his way into the kill feed as Jonah P down. This is finally that flank starting to come to fruition, and the bodies are starting to drop, but damage has been dealt, and there is still a Bulldog and a Classic. Just about doing enough there for the Guard. Damage dealt, sure, but M80 will take a second.
That got dangerous for a moment. I don't think the Guard really had the full awareness of how heavy-handed that long flank was, but Nismo only had a Spectre, so for him to find the first kill quickly was actually pretty key because that long range, he may have been trapped and maybe bodyguard out a little bit by Valen, who was still playing on the pillar. So there were some tight moments in that, and at least for the Guard, you look at that and say, okay, that was a heavy purchase for them on the anti-eco. A couple of rifles that are now going to be repurchased once again, so you're going to have a significant advantage here for the Guard in round number 3. In fact, M80 can only bring a Phantom and a Guardian in. Those are the 2 weapons that were picked up off the ground last round. So kind of I won't say like a backfire because you still win the round, and this is, you know, kind of more like your bonus, so to speak, but it definitely puts you in a weird economical situation early.
Yeah, you were hoping this bonus was going to be a strong one, and now it does just look like a bonus for M80. I will say I've seen Nismo be pretty vocal about his stance on the Guardian and how good of a gun it is on Twitter, so I'm sure he's at the very least happy to have that. And unfortunate for M80, the Sheriffs they bring into this round maybe don't find that same value just because of the full shields on the side of the Guard.
But you are getting a lot of map clearance again from M80. This is now 2 rounds in a row. The long flank through A long, and now a little bit of a poke and prod through mid. Gets a lot of information. Well, it's no information, which is good for information, saying no one's here. this has got to be a B hit. Once more, M80 are going to back off of the site, not even bother contesting the spike plant. That's now 3 rounds in a row that they're going to give away this plant and have to play retake with, again, not a lot of weaponry to go with, and a lot of this is going to come from the front. That flank never really truly came through.
Yeah, no flank at all, which makes it that much harder with the weaponry at hand. Koala with the ghosts, Tex and Valen playing in the back lines. Fragments are out, and they're doing their due diligence. The utility, the timing's good. The flash is better. First one down, but Jonah there for the trade. And that's everything that the guard needed to make sure that Koala would not run away with this round. But things start to look scary. The Cosmic Divide, I mean, it cuts off all the sightlines here, forcing out the Hunter. Shuri Nano Swarm down as well, and time still on the clock, but is it going to be enough? John Cuny once more on the tap, just hoping to do some damage, and it looks like he's going to find his leave as EU falls. John will save the rifle and concede the round to the guard.
That's a very expensive round, though. Again, on the other side, M80 kind of taking away a lot of weapons, forcing repurchases. The guard are going to be fine. They've got enough bank account to make sure they can still afford, but I am a bit confused to see that the Cosmic Divide comes out that early, especially considering that there is still so much utility left for the guard of that offense, not really needing it to get into the site because of how passive M80 were playing on the backside through tower and in that mid connector link. So it's a bit puzzling to see them try to go for that Cosmic Divide. You're trying to give it a go. You had a couple of nice kills from Koala Noob, so it makes it more plausible, but it was kind of an expensive round in the terms of getting rid of that Cosmic Divide early for M80 as we finally get into a full gun round for both these two teams here in round 4. And the guard are going to give a little bit of an early poke over towards A main, an opportunity for this orb to be collected because Trent had just previously obviously spent his Hunter's Fury, and these smokes are going to lead to actually a null command committee here. The guard are looking to maybe get a little forward.
Yeah, and Xander catches one through the smoke. That's a robot down. Unfortunately, that means a resurrection available. So Xander's efforts basically for naught as Tex will find another. He pushes his way forward, and he's finally met by John, who picks up 2, make it 3. This round looking that much more doable for M80 as it started quick. Look at this shift. The backstab here from Net. Will he catch the timing on anything? No, he might get timing himself. Here's the reload. And now look to fight backwards here. It's a mirror matchup. And, okay, for a second, I thought we were still on John's POV where he flicked over to the net, but it's the inverse, and it's all up to Nismo now.
Yeah, that's one of those situations is just like, okay, well, what's going to go on this way through? I mean, we saw KO versus KO. Looked very confusing the same way. So spike collected, and ultimately considering the quick trigger for the guard to get in towards A, M80 put themselves in a pretty solid spot. I mean, Nismo's still in a good position. He's got all of his utility to work with and a free kill on the net. And now it's just down to reading the 1v1. And that rotation from Net may have given it away. Flash comes through, and Nismo's looking to use not just the time, but also this position at mid to hopefully give himself an advantage in the 1v1.
Lots of utility here. Fragment to try and stall as well. I mean, you can just see it here. Jonah does not feel comfortable to plant. Will finally look to do so. We'll have to stick it the entire way. When you look at the health advantage, that belongs to Nismo. Spike planted. Jonah on the swing, finds the kill and manages to keep control for the guard.
Wow. That is about as tight as it gets, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But boy, these first 4 rounds have been tight. So kind of going to Dust's point from the desk, he didn't expect that this was going to be a one-sided affair. Again, it's still very early days in what could be an instant classic of a series with how these two teams have fared, not just in their series so far, but also against each other. But the fashion of which how these 4 rounds have gone has been really peculiar, because even after another round win, you're still dealing with light armor and no fragment purchase for Jonah with only 1 flash. So even though the guard have full purchase, so to speak, there are some utility pieces that are missing. And even though M80 just have sheriffs and a marshal, anything can happen with 1 good shot.
Yeah, I mean, Trent's sitting on a bulldog right now. Both of these teams really struggling to piece together actual full buy rounds just because of how close and how down to the wire everything has been. It's Net. Understanding that M80 have been taking the space out towards mid in previous rounds, just going to be posted up here, play that deposit.
And M80 are going to have to do something a little bit more uncharacteristic from what we've seen so far. They are going to have a little bit more of an aggressive stack on towards B, just kind of gambling and predicting the guard very well may come this direction. And I will say there's an opportunity for Xander with his utility to possibly dissuade the guard from committing here to A. And if he can make that happen, that would be instrumental towards M80 having a shot here in what is largely just 1-tap weapons.
Stars are down on both sides. Nebula Smokes are out, and art control completely taken here. Tex to make that one look easy. Xander said too much to worry about as the sole anchor here on the A site. And now if you're M80, I mean, you're praying and hoping for the best, but looking as we get the aerial POV, they look like lambs to me. And lambs to the slaughter here.
Saying this is the slaughter here today?
Yeah.
Well, Tex will be first contacted if he wins this, or maybe not. Things could get interesting here, Tanner. This whole post point is set up largely through mid, so this is all about just trying to find the team shots, and M80 are going to get recontrol of the site.
Yeah, taking it slow, though. They've got to start moving quicker as that spike will tick down. Koala still sitting on the Marshall. John Cutie retrieved that weapon that had fallen, and
It's a great knife.
yeah, unfortunately, just no time either. They just want to try and play for kills here, but it looks like the guard will start to clean things up. They'll try and sneak away. We'll see if everybody escapes the explosion. Unfortunately, Yona takes the long way around and does not make it out with his life. But most importantly, the guard find a lead.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things to credit right there. The guard commit, even through the nebulas, saying, let's not worry about it, even though utility very well could have stopped that play, but they predict correctly on the initial execute. But that last knife, it may seem like a small thing, but the way that Jonah throws that against the wall, it reveals only as far as where the spike was planted for. So you know if anyone's even threatening trying to get a toggle on. So just a little bit of advanced information as the guard take their edge. But M80 bring a little bit of something different this time after 3 rounds lost in a row. Koala Noob's finally got enough to afford the operator, and he's looking to get aggressive in towards mid with a bit of support. Sentry turret will be taken care of, not by the operator. So this is still concealed as far as a possible power play for M80's defense.
It does make you think, though, right? And just based off of if you took people out of chat, right, who maybe haven't been paying the closest bit of attention, and you said, hey, your turret got first contact against M80, what player do you think that is? I think 9 out of 10 people would say, yeah, that's Koala Noob. And you see the respect that the guard are giving, understanding that, sure, we heard a Vandal, but we're pretty sure Koala's trying to do something tricky.
And this is a different setup again, also, just kind of not just with the operator, but M80's defense is in a place to contest this time. The sentry turret will watch for early crosses. You can obviously, Nismo is holding on to utility just in case there's an execute. And then you've got an easy swing behind the nanostorm. And they're actually going to go for the pop flash play, but nothing is seen. How much patience is that from the guard? The presence detected off of the knife and the 0 point. The null command also going to be popped, I believe, off of that by Nismo. So the M80 is feeling the threat, but the guard have once again found some success at mid, and they can wrap behind this and change their angle of approach. It doesn't necessarily have to be A. But that takes the first blood against Koala. That could open the floodgates, and with 20 seconds, they've got to go quick.
Wow, I mean, that right there, heartbreaking for M80. Not something that you normally see. Koala falls to the Vandal. Meanwhile, action out towards B. Players are being dealt with. The time is starting to get low. Good reveal. Xander holding it down. No Koala needed as the Astra continues to fight forward. It's damage found. It's 5 seconds. A cosmic divide. We'll see if John looks to go in front of it, and yes, he does. Nismo now left all on his lonesome. Tried to make the hero play was John Cutie. Unfortunately, he falls short.
And now he's without utility. Trent's also got 2 shock darts. It's the most awkward plant you've probably ever seen on A, but time forced it to be right here on the edge of the Cosmic Divide. And as Nismo clears one side, he may have an idea that they have swung right back through into shops. And if he gets this information, the utility may not be needed. It just comes down to, can he actually take the transfer and win the 1v2 in a difficult spot?
Yeah, having an idea that maybe they're sitting art here. First one up is Valen. That spike doesn't even get halfway. Beautifully played there at the end. The defensive hold, it was so good, but it just was not enough, and the guard find themselves now 2 rounds of lead.
And that's one of the things that we saw a lot when these 2 teams played before. I know we're talking about it a lot, but look, that was the first time that really either of these 2 teams had been severely tested in the play styles that both these 2 teams like to kind of sit at. But the thing about it was M80 was getting bullied around by the guard off of these kind of quick rotates, these quick flips. So the fact that the guard were able to pull the null command out so early led to that small little advantage to where the retake was just on vanilla weaponry. And now how about this? M80 looking to maybe assert some dominance and some aggression, but it's the knives that get first blood in combination with the grab well. But M80 are still trying to hold the front door here, Tanner.
Yeah, not done just yet. Unfortunately, Koala's gone short for M80, but that means that the rest of the team seemingly gets a buff. Nismo finds the first in that last round. Xander was able to take down 2 1-4. Koala 1-4 himself. These pistols aren't the best, but anything's still possible. The defense split across the map, and the guards say, hey, they're saving. Let's go ahead and take these long-range fights if possible.
Yeah, why not? this quick rotate, I think the guard is going to be very aware that the M80 team has just they've not played forward on this B site at all. But Nismo's little shoulder, that could stall things out. Great utility usage to isolate it. Oh my goodness, nearly actually takes down Nismo while he tries to exit. So this lockdown should certainly affirm that there's going to be a quick plant. Tex is also going to control back hauls with the Blade Storm. This is going to be a tough cookie to crack here for M80, especially as Nismo gets spammed through smoke.
Yep, and these duels, I mean, they go the way that you were expecting, at least to get started. That second long-range duel gets a little wide for Trent. Used there for the trade. Knives go wide. 2 more remain here for Tex. He's only going to have himself a stinger once these knives are gone as Jonah P. Pops the ult to the zone. Drop down on the side, Xander. Shots with the Sheriff, but M80 just can't find a way into it just yet. Tex still in the back line, still to be worried about the knives. They've now been refreshed, so how about 5 more to try and close things out as Xander fights for a second on the round. I don't know if people match that, and the guard just keep marching forward.
Yeah, and man, this is starting to become, I think, a little concerning for M80. Maybe that infringement period of like, maybe we should consider a timeout here, because the thing about it is they're just not finding any value from Koala Noob. We talked about Koala Noob kind of being a mild factor. He didn't have the pop-off performance last time these two teams played, as you normally expect. And that was a win condition, ultimately the guard. But the thing this time is he's 2-5, and entries have not necessarily been there. He's usually great with the first kill death ratio. He has not really been a factor in these first blood fights, ultimately leaking. So that's something that needs to change for M80, is that they go back into a full person. It's an early Hunter's Fury, just trying to predict and guess. That works out for the first. Koala all takes down Tech, so big number here for M80. And you figure the guard are side on, do we really want to give this a true try, especially as they lose net?
Yeah, that right there, I mean, the medals are out. The defib for M80, and I think confidence to get it back for Koala Noob. I'm happy to see that he isn't afraid to play aggressive, to play bold like you does, especially after getting shut down early. And with all that, yeah, just too much to worry about with 2 remaining. Trent now try his hand at it. EU gets just enough to take down his counterpart, and M80 are back in the win column, but they have to keep doing it. I think something that the elephant in the room, right? If you're looking back at week 5 shift, 3 attacking rounds. So M80, they were good on their defensive rounds. They did well on their defensive rounds. But when you jump into this game and you have that in mind of, if they only get 3 here on Pearl, how many do they need on defense? Well, they need more than 3 here on defense.
In that defensive half, there were a lot of really interesting kind of comments that, you know, thought for a moment the round was going to go one way and then another. Like, there's a lot of, I think, failed follow-ups is kind of the way that I would categorize it. But M80 haven't really had a chance to do much following up at the moment, because the guard have controlled every instance of this game, really up until that little set play with the Hunter Fury and the Operator came out. So this is an important round. They try to establish some trends here for M8. They're getting pushed off by the Aldron. Hunter's Fury will also flush them back, and that should be a free sight for the guard, but not so much. Xander continues to impress, and that will allow a chance for M80 to try to hold.
Yeah, I mean, just getting the kills right back. Xander doing his darndest again. Finds he kills as Tex wants to push forward, get a little aggressive, but now numbers down. Both Trent and net utility to hang on to. Shock Dart will find damage. Is that going to be enough? Look at this, the investment. Round comes through. They're going to try and force these attackers all the way off site. And Trent will try and deal with this one up. His net backs with him at all. Trent will make it 2, deals with the lockdown jump out. No, he doesn't find the damage, but so much has been dealt. Koala now with the knives will take the fight, but net wins it out once more.
Wow. I mean, the cojones on Trent, bro. I mean, that's walking into a 1v3 in Gauntlet. I mean, time against him, lockdown about to come through, and he says, I can still find a way to wiggle this out. He catches not just the shoulder of John on one side, but EU on the other, takes down both. That is unreal. And Trent's difference made not just the last time they played, but already early here is beat. He's 8-6, good spread across the board. But Emmy, boy, they need to find some help here for Xander, who's been trying to find a way to clean up on some of these fights. But their entry, I would be curious to see when we eventually get back to the desk what the first kill tallies are going to look like, because at the moment it feels very lopsided in favor of the guard in these first battles.
And Trent was a player, this is unknown to, I mean, this isn't unknown, excuse me, to anybody, that Trent is who he is. But to be this this young gun who has so much pressure, right? When you talk about the guard, obviously all 5 of these players are players to mention, but we look back to, you know, Trent 180ing, finding 3Ks and just doing the most insane stuff. And he does it over and over again. The pressure never gets to this guy. I mean, yeah, absolutely insane. Walk into the Lion's Den and steal away 2 of the Cubs, leaving it all. Well, it's hard to call Koala a lot. He's Koala, but still.
He's a marsupial.
Yeah, he's a marsupial. Yeah, just absolutely insane. And I mean, if there was ever a time that you were about to get some win in those, it was just taken away.
Absolutely. And once again, the guard, they're getting control of B, like just off of easy smokes and recharge information gathering tools like Recon, Dart, and 0-point knives. Like, I think if you're M80, you need to start asserting some map dominance because the guard is just getting away with everything. Flat out, this is borderline colonialism with how much land they're finding for free at the moment.
Yeah, they came, they saw, they conquered in week 5, and seemingly continuing here. Opshot does not quite find EU, sent out that recon bolt, and
Look at that.
I mean, the spike's not even here.
I mean, it doesn't need to be. That's the thing. Look how far forward Net's gotten. I mean, M80, this is so uncharacteristic from what we saw all through Split and even in their matchup in their upper bracket final or first round, rather, where they were playing up against Moist Moguls, like, or semifinal rather. They are completely entrapped. And Net, if he comes around the corner here with timing, oh, he was going to find a free kill onto Xander, but now all of a sudden the spike has to commit into B, and it doesn't have a lot of time to do it, Tanner.
Nope, it's not. The clock has been an issue in some of the rounds for they do always manage to find a way. Texas on Nismo make sure of that. The next stop shot land for Koala. Trip also fall to the hands of the Marshall with 10 seconds on the clock. Jonah wrong side of the map without a spike. Back away from it and save his weapon. So M80, after a tough loss, round number 9, will bring it back together for round 10.
Yeah, I think that's just the guard getting a little too cute. I mean, you force M80 to rotate off of A, you get that all the way in towards deep mid, and then instead of just kind of holding your position and seeing if you can catch someone on transition, I think Net was trying to play for maybe an extra exit kill over towards the defenders rotating at A, just gets caught the wrong way. But on the other hand, how about you want to change the narrative around a little bit? Those shots from Koala Noob with the operator, those are shots right there that you start to like build some confidence for the young man, because man, it's been empty and the op shots have not had a chance to even ring out, let alone connect largely for Koala Noob. So the fact that he's been able to hit those, yeah, that's going to feel good, and there could be a momentum swing through this as now the guard have to go to a timeout and discuss how they want to try to finish off this half.
Well, you know, Shift, I thought the same thing when we saw the Hunter Sherry play, Koala push into A-main with the operator. They win that round. I'm thinking, okay, Koala's finally, you know, starting to get some of that confidence back after getting shut down by Net. And then Trent immediately steals with that push into Flowers, dealing with Koala's in the 1v1, and he misses a knife. So it really has been a back and forth battle for just Koala alone. Is known for, I would imagine, known for not only his stats being one of, if not the most bold Jets that we have in challengers. And I mean, the guard just makes sure anything but that, right? They take away all of that boldness.
And the thing is, I mean, you can definitely make the argument for that, for sure. He's definitely been within the conversation. There's no question about it. It's kind of the same situation with like Tex on the other side. He's definitely been at the forefront of power Jets in this first split of Valorant Challengers North America. But yeah, it's getting him hot. That's been a big key to success for M80 across everything. I mean, yeah, they're dominant in the kill stats, but what we really saw their first time against the guard was when him and Xander are not a big, you know, takeover type of performer, M80 looks a little bit disjointed. So getting him online is key, as this round is going to be a little bit more pressed here for the guard. Just a solo Vandal with a couple of pistol upgrades in round 11.
This one feeling good. They're finally able to reset, but that solo Vandal finds 2 more for the team side. I mean, John Cuty's left all on his low. He's not long for this world.
You wouldn't think so, especially as he's been yeah, okay. That will make things a little bit more comfortable. Leaves it down to a 2v5. Koala Noob needs to find a way to get an entry here, but with an operator, this may be one of those situations where M80 may try to just see if EU can make a solo play, because you don't want to give up the op this late in the half.
3 seconds away. from the recon. The operator only missing the timing. And just narrowly missing the shots. Good crouch from VALORANT will keep him alive. Now Koala gonna head for the hills. Net will run him down, and no reason not to. You brought that rifle and sheriffs into this round, and there goes the operator. A thrifty victory courtesy of, it seems like in some of these rounds, M80 couldn't buy one if they wanted to.
True. Options are closed. Defense, it feels like. I just, the guard, I won't even want to use the words get away with that round. That wasn't just getting away with it. That was robbery in broad daylight. I mean, just pistol upgrades, one Vandal. The Vandal song gets a lot of damage dealt. The pistol's lives made much easier, but the fact that M80 once again are just kind of giving away so much forward space. They're not contesting any of these choke points, and it's really allowed the guard to just use their utility beautifully. And now, of course, we're in round 12, and that conversation will change, but even in the exchange here, 2 for 2 is fine if you're the guard.
You will gladly take that one more defender, and Tex with the operator proving proficient there. If it was the Battle of the Jets today, not what we highlighted in our head-to-head, it's definitely Tex who was coming out on top of it all. John Cutie, not wanting to be revealed, will back away, and John and Xander, they're going to try their hand at this. Cosmic Divide available. 2v3. Look at the util. Net full utility. Here comes a Cosmic Divide, and John does it again. He moves just a second too early. Now it's all up to Xander. He's been good for 3 in rounds before. In a 1v3, he has to be perfect. Trent just on the other side of the pillar. Operator still playing out towards long. Net giving him nothing. There's the first. Alarm bot to reveal. Now as time ticks away, the Cosmic Divide will also fall. Xander ready for the angle. A star to play with. And the star goes down, but now he'll take the long angle against the operator. It's Tex on the other side. Good spray. Doesn't quite find it there. He just has to run up to the spike. He has to stick to the fuse here. Maybe look to get this one halfway, but a nano swarm still available. The turret shooting him down as well. And I mean, it's just against the world there with Xander at that round.
And man, that's one of those rounds again where it's like M80 finally tried to get aggressive, take away part of the map right off the rip, but going 2 for 2 if you're the guard is perfectly fine. Because how are you going to watch 4 lanes worth of map with 3 members left remaining? So just so many advantages, and at certain points you also got to look back at the major utility from M80. I don't think we ever fully saw a round from them where they were able to successfully combine utility in the same layering style that we had seen against just about everybody except the guard. That includes ultimates, by the way. Never really saw a joint combination to dominate a round. And things get really scary here, Tanner, because like we talked about, the guard won 8 straight defensive rounds last time they played. So how do you bounce back in this half if you're M80, considering the score and the circumstances that lay before you based on previous results?
Yeah, 8 straight the last time they met, and you only have 5 to lose if you're M80. And well, 1 of 5, Xander, the first one taken down, net gonna play off of his alarm bot. Backstab there, just nobody expecting the killjoy here on this corner. Nismo sneaks away, escapes death, so does Jonah, but a 2-for-1 trade thus far. M80 still a player down.
Man, tough scenes, because it's just one of those situations that, okay, I thought for a second the guard was still gonna be able to contest this position bottom side tower, but not to be. So now the spike could possibly be planted. Maybe a step too far forward there from Nismo. A bit greedy, I think some would argue, but M80 are looking to kind of play this through Link, and they've got utility that's going to be completely absent of this long route coming on the backside from Tex. So this is going to lead to a full-out overwhelm, and no one's expecting Tex here.
Yeah, fortunately the players aren't quite giving themselves up. John gonna try and take those fights. Now Trent gonna hopefully help his Jet out here. Turret does some damage there. Tex deals just enough to cut it down to 1. It's John Cutie playing back calls. A very healthy Jet still alive. In this round, everything from M80 to try and get back into this game. Tex taps once more. Back on the angle. Now out of time. Will only play for the kill. And John has done just enough. Beautifully played for the killjoy of M80. And they're back in this one.
Yeah, look, it's going to feel like a minor footnote in the series, but that was a huge pistol for M80 just to try to stave off what has been a dominant display from the guard in terms of round count. And you've got 9 rounds in a row that nearly go the way of the guard saved the two that maybe were able to pull back there late in the first half. So a key pistol, and they're even going to go into the heavy investment into the rifles after the plant was successful. So 4 Vandals in the mix, light armors, of course, and on the opposite side, the guard's not doing anything too crazy, just 2 Sheriffs with classics to follow up. And this knife will push them off of this choke point, looking to take away ground early here at A.
Yeah, much like we saw in the inverse, though, right? When M80 were doing this again, these Sheriffs become Guardians against the players who only have light shields. So M80 still need to play this one respectful. And they're walking right into the belly of the beast, or at the very least flirting with the idea of walking into the belly of the beast.
Yeah. I mean, you have to do something crazy, you'd think, if you are the guard here at these pistols, against, especially if you know that you're playing up against rifles, but maybe you're going to take their time, see if the Owl Drone scouts anything out before they commit any sort of controlling utility to try to get their way in. It's not really going to see too much. So, again, this is going to be a shootout here right in the front of A.
Uh-oh. Trent didn't want to reveal his position, so he gets revealed. Pistols finally online. John Cutie finds one of his own. He's going to take the long-range duel, still with the rifle in hand. They'll hang on to it, but Tex will drop another. It's Xander to fall. And Trent and Valen, they know both defenders are here, so they make the long rotation across the map.
But think about it. Look how fast the guard are predicting this. I mean, John's not going to have any help at all. Eventually, the guard will have to kind of hold off to make sure they're not making too much sound. But the thing is, Trent picked up a rifle in this whole interaction. So he could very realistically fight against this ghost, no worries.
Yep, and there it is. There's that fight. Oof, beautiful fragment there, though, forces him away. And now 15 HP is not a whole lot for your Sova. Recon Bolt goes out, shock dart wasted. Trent picks up 2. No way he does it again. And EU does not have the health for this. He has to be perfect.
He's got a recon dart, but one shot from this Vandal will absolutely get the job done. Just comes down to the timing of this peak.
Valen clearing it all, now understanding that the play is probably out this way. From 37 to 17, EU. Toss out that recon bolt, knows Valen that is not on the spike. Again, it comes down to the time and how well EU can play it, but the guard have done it again. Trent has done it again for this defense.
Wow. I mean, that's heartbreak if you're M80. Everything starts to go your way. You've got the execute that you want, the timing that you wanted it in, but the reveal of the recon bolt in the midst of all the nebula doesn't ever see Tex, who gets 2 unreal eliminations, one up close and then one at far range, allowing Trent to get out, find this Vandal that eventually changes hands over to Valen. Oh man, the juggling that we just saw from the guard, unreal. And now M80, because of that big purchase, right back down to limited buys here in what is going to be possibly a game-breaking round 15.
That is, I mean, it seems like M80 can't do anything right after a season of doing nothing wrong. The guard, the kryptonite here in this one, but they're quick out towards B, into the link they'll go. Koala, tip of the spear here with the Vandal, and it's 4 players strong as they work their way onto the site. They have not yet cleared it, and Tex back site. Cap takes the first. It's Xander to fall. Who's next up? This cloud burst dissipates. Tex wants some more. That's exactly what he'll get. The buys weren't the best, but that one rifle gets absolutely nothing. This classic does a bit more than that. The round still belongs to the guard.
Yeah, that's one of those, you spun up the web and baited in M80 without much problem at all. Like you mentioned, the buy was not anything to really kind of shake a stick at, but the thing about it is, I mean, when we see the final scoreboard, if we get a chance to even pull up the full KDs, you're going to see it again. The difference between Tex and Koala Noob right now is stark. 18 and 14 to 8 and 11. I mean, not that Koala Noob is playing poorly by KD standards, but compared to normal and compared to what the M80 is used to, this is one of those off performances that very well will represent what we saw in week 5 when these two teams squared up again, because Xander's been unbelievable. He's been great for M80, but it just feels that the team is just a little out of sorts. We're not seeing the same kind of layering and combination that we're used to out of this squad, and some of that's off the fact that they're just not doing all that well in these first blood engagements.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking back to set plays from M80 where Nismo tosses out the fragment up and over the top, clears out Link, Koala dashes through and deals with everybody, but yeah, we are just not getting any of that. I think M80 may be giving too much respect to the guard. Maybe we need to see them play a little bit more disrespectful. Lockdown comes through. Jonah, you know they're staying on this site to fight, and finally they do sniff that one out. Meanwhile, Xander's playing late lurk here. 2 players all the way up through main. Valen and Trent, both of which have been dealt with in this one. So much more doable now for M80.
Do you expect Tex? That's the real question. And well, Xander does. That is so heads up from Xander. Just takes the round into his own hands and calls game. Well, not game, but calls 6. There's number 6 for you.
Yeah, he calls 6.
But like the thing about it that I really challenge everyone at home to kind of keep an eye on is compare what we saw from M80 defensively to what we're getting from the guard here. I mean, 3 X's all the way deep through A main and then a long lurking flank that ends up being the third. But the guard is trying to proactively take away the map from M80. And outside of Xander's special play there where he gets all 3 kills, it largely, again, feels like it's been pretty successful thus far into the second half. There's not really an instance, maybe save the follow-up first 3 rounds after the pistol, where you could say that for how M80 was playing the map. So the tempo, the patterns, the trends, all of it is favoring towards the guard at the moment. And if we want to see M80 pull back a comeback here, we need to start seeing that stapled aggression to where if the guard are trying to finesse that map control, they get punished for it because M80 is finding so much success on their initial entries.
Koala hoping to find an initial entry here. Operator on the attacking side. We expect nothing less. He will have EU in tow. And at the start of this round, the spike, very non-committal, still down inside the spawn. Jonah on the other side will go down. Are they expecting 2 more as Tex continues to creep up? Koala holds the angle, spots the elbow. Tex is gone. Net will find one across the map, but it just might not matter. A good tag. Actually, the shot goes wide. Valen survives. Picked up the 1 rifle here in this one as he walks forward. Retrieves it off a fallen teammate. And is still fighting.
And once again, Xander finds a 1v1 that may save this round. I mean, that long lurk from that almost completely, again, entrapped M80 here at B long. And I don't even know how you execute through this to get to B. Because Valen's rifle is not going to have too much to push him out of halls. You've got 1 flash, 1 fragment, and a couple of stars that could be placed. But honestly speaking, Valen's got a lot of self-survivability just based off position and the fact that he's got Trent's Hunter's Fury if he needs to. And that's a huge follow-up pick. Valen keeping the play alive. 2v2 we go.
Every single time they go too early behind it, and the guard will always find a way. Another eBay thrifty to steal away any momentum M80 we're starting to put together.
Gut punch, brother. That is an absolute gut punch. Both of the thrifty rounds that we've seen are rounds that should just never have happened like that. And there may be something you could say about maybe there's a lack of confidence here, a lack of full commitment, but I'm telling you, you go back and watch M80 versus literally anybody else versus the guard, and you will not see M80 play with this amount of hesitancy and just kind of general delay that we're seeing on some of these executes, whether it be for the spike sites right here or on retakes from the defensive side. This is not the M80 that played through the splits, not the M80 we saw when they were playing up against Moist Moguls, and the guard are absolutely feasting with a full buy and a couple of ultimates that could very well counter the Null Command and Hunter's Fury on the other side for M80.
And Tex has the high grounds here. On the top turnbuckle with the operator will find the first, looks to sneak away. Hunter's Fury, though, going to try and chase him down, but it doesn't land the first shot nor the second. The third, however, does hit. Tex still wants to fight, but Xander silences the Jet here on this site. So a 1-for-1 trade thus far. The site, it has been taken, but Hunter's Fury in response from Trent. We'll see how much he can get out of this one.
Thing is, this is all setting up net from the flank, just pushing them all into this corner. Now the lockdown is earned. Nismo is in a little bit of trouble here, does respond. So hold on a second. With EU also pushing back Trent at range and the lockdown destroyed, this gets to a very different 2v2 with M80 now in the advantage, leaving it to Jonah P for the 1v2.
Jonah, first fight here with the EU does get revealed from the suppression. Now knows exactly where Nismo is playing, but the spike, it's planted for M80, but Jonah continues the reign of terror.
Unbelievable! How has he been able to do this? I mean, the only option he had was to try to toggle, take away the off angle, see if he can force an early peek. That's just no ice again from M80. Holy cow. I mean, you called it the shot initially to open things up. You thought that M80's chances at getting on the site were pretty much null and completely moot, but they still fight back. They survive through the Hunter's Fury. Now backs are up against the wall. Buys are going to be limited. and you were able to hold Koala Noob to below even for now, which is better than they did last time if you're the guard. Unreal scenes considering the display that Xander has had. It's just, you can't beat this guard team with one member.
And I mean, obviously, we're 6 rounds apart now, but if we think about how the game started, the first 5 or 6 rounds were down to 1v1s, 2v2s. The economy was in such a rough spot. So if you swing those rounds to M80 and then you take away the 2 huge hero plays from Trent and that hero play from Jonah, M80 are in the lead in this game. You look at the kills here, right? How close are we across the board? Xander and Tex are completely matched. The rest of the team, we're not far off. It's I said it the other day, it's the onesies and twosies, but that's everything that the guard need to make this game look as dominant as it is. I mean,
and Tater,
just insane.
Look at the assist difference between both of these two teams. We saw the team stats in cast percentages, the ability to get onto the assist board. Both teams are in the top 2, but you've got a very stark difference starting to build up between those 2 categories. And I think that, again, just kind of attributes to the lack of success that M80 have had combining utilities so far in this map.
Oh, man. And if you thought the timeout was going to help, maybe slow things down, keep the guard at bay, nope. They go right back to it out towards mid. Tex will find the first kill.
And it's on Xander, your top kill leader and your controller, that has been finding the only success on these entries. So now it has to be someone like Nismo to get some clearance, and he drops second. So, oh boy, they're running out of options, Canner. Not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, what do they have? Remaining. John Cutie goes aggressive. Tex, for whatever reason, is still inside the sewers with the operator. John not happy about that one. EU. I mean, they call a timeout, but it doesn't matter. It's flawless to close us out here, and it's much like we saw last time. The guard on top very favorably.
I mean, that's domination. We're in the upper bracket finals. These are the top 2 teams in North American Challengers. Statistically speaking, off of all the stats that we saw, eco numbers, cast percentages, ADRs, stuff like that, both teams dominate the top of the leaderboard. Not here, though. This head-to-head matchup, Koala Noob has not been able to show up to play up against the excuse me, against the guard a single time. Xander, who was shut down the first time, showed up this time, but the combination of utility that we're used to seeing from M80 is not there. The guard is playing near flawlessly.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is dangerous prospects for the rest of the series.
And when you look at these 2 teams, M80, the bomb squad, explosive, but I think most importantly, we expect them to be bold. It's the boldness of M80 versus the heroics of the guard, and unfortunately, italicized was the best that we got from M80 here. No bold, no underline. The statement was made from the guard, and now they're 3-0 up in the series against this M80 team. And we get a chance to see if they can continue to do so flawlessly and find their way in the grand finals, but all of that will come after a short break.